Okay, good evening, everyone, to the Cosmic Ascension Waves of Light, or the Call. Today's date is the 27th of October 2024, and it is 7:13 p.m. here in Ireland. I haven't done these roundtables for quite some time, and I'm excited, really excited. I can feel that energy in my belly that to start them up again and mostly to reconnect with people and because there's some beautiful souls um doing amazing work and being online and sharing information about lots of different subjects, including weather and disclosure and um the truth of our history and just so many subjects. Um, and as a lot of people will know, that we've been lied to on such a mass scale within every subject. So I would like to introduce this evening Robert Valentine, Jerry McKinnon, Brian Seng, Julia Ankerhaven, and Amber Louise, sorry, who will be taking more of a back seat this evening, but I'm delighted that she's here, even though she's not feeling well. She's really made an effort, because I know how it is when you're not feeling well. You don't really want to be talking to anyone, really. So thank you, everyone, especially Amber, because you're not well. So some of the subjects we'll be covering tonight are weather and disclosure. But first of all, would everyone like to give a short introduction? Maybe we'll go round the table. So, Rob, if we start with you.
Hey everybody, yeah. My name is Robert Valentine, and I live in Vegas, Las Vegas. And my sort of awakening started in about 10 years ago, about 2014. Um, I'm um, I'm trying to make this as short as possible, but basically, I was taken aboard a ship. Let me just put it that way. I'm just going to simplify it. When I was 20 years old, and I had a chip put in the back of my head, the base of my skull. I didn't know that at the time. All I remember is just the abduction itself. It wasn't scary. It was positive. But either way, I was sort of woke up floating, went through the actual house, went through the ceiling, and went through the roof, and I came outside, and and I was paralyzed, so I couldn't move or anything. So to me, I really just thought it was just a really bad dream, except for when they pulled me back, I somehow I released, for the better way of describing it, the tractor beam, and I fell probably about 20 inches onto my bed, and that's kind of woke me up. And I thought to myself, I'm having a crazy dream. This is like, it was such a realistic dream. Anyway, it kind of freaked me out, but I didn't really tell too many people because I thought it's just too bizarre and whatever. But since then, I've been having louder voices in my head. I mean, I think everybody has internal voices in their head, which that's kind of what I really thought all it was. I thought it was just myself talking to myself because it's in my same voice. But it was like I could tell that these are thoughts or ideas that weren't mine, and they were mostly giving me heads up about things to watch out for because they've saved me a few times from, let's say, accidents and things like that. And so I really, in a sense, I just probably just put it up to like, guardian angel or something like that. I didn't really discuss a lot of this stuff, but 2014, I'm just fast forwarding. It started to be a little more louder, and they were just. It's funny because I call it they because I sensed there's more than one. There's about five beings that are connected or somehow they talk to me all. They don't talk to me all at once, but I'm just saying that there's five different entities, I think, and they still tell me lots of stuff. They were filling me in what's about to come, like give me lots of heads up on what's going to happen in the future, and people are going to wake up and all this stuff. But basically, since then, I was just documenting or what we would call downloads. So like I would get up 3 o'clock in the morning and I'd start writing all the stuff down that they were telling me. And so I have a huge stack of information, 40 pages of information. Again, I'm the type of person I just sort of sit on stuff because I don't I don't want to discuss it with anybody unless I know that they're if they're into that information at all. I just don't want to start telling people that I've got crazy voices in my head. So then I started reaching out, and I find people that it's like, okay, I'm not crazy after all. Like there's people that are getting telepathic messages and on and on and on. So in a sense, it's kind of been a long road, but I've finally accepted the fact that yeah, I'm getting information from off-world beings, and I'm part of kind of an operation. It's kind of the simplest way of me putting it. And yeah, so I'm here incarnated in a physical body, just like everybody else. And I'm still just sort of trying to connect and make sense of all of this. I mean, as far as being here, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. And to me, if I could just simplify before I end my little spiel about myself, it kind of a liberation operation to liberate uh, human beings, well, not human beings, but basically this planet has been under sort of a control system. So yeah, I think we're all sort of volunteered here to sort of help wake people up and get out of this mess. It's about the simplest way I can put it. So that's my short story.
Thank you, Rob. And I was just wondering, as you were talking, um, I was just wondering, when did you, I know you had that experience and I know it was real, but when did you realize that that first experience of being taken up was real? How long was it afterwards that you realized?
It was more of a slow process. Like I was getting uh, that information because they know what it's like. They know the human condition. Like our brains, which are it's just a biological computer, we can only take so much information and process it. So they just slowly filled it out. But I just basically, yeah, I came to that realization, but also they told me that about 2014. 2014 was really big. They were like extra loud going, okay, we're on. We got to start getting up to speed, wake up to your mission, that type of thing. So I was living pretty much a normal life, although I've got a strange life anyway, but they were just, that's when they really sort of filled me in what was going on and that. So, yeah.
You do have an unusual life, I have to say. I'm not going to share it because that would be wrong of me, but yes, you do.
Yeah. Well, I'm a multimedia sort of artist because so that's almost like, well, someone's called it a super artist because it's like, and this, I know it's not me. It's not necessarily talent from me, but I'm just saying, I'm a musician, sculptor, painter, uh, metal worker. I play multiple instruments, things like that. So it's like it's all creative. So I'm super, super. I'm actually over creative. I have to tamp it down all the time, constantly. But yeah, that's kind of my lifestyle.
So a lot of people, I have a very quick question for you. So a lot of people like us who have experiences or similar, they end up offering services or healing, or they somehow enter that they normally end up offering services. And I'm just wondering, do you offer any type of services or healing or
Not at this time, because they told me years ago. They said I really won't be activated until they sort of described this operation that we're involved in a three-part way. The, I called it the three Ds, was discovery, disclosure, and then dismantle this control system. So they said once this will be at a certain stage, they said then I'll be more activated. So I kind of know that and that's why I don't really, I'm not really out there at this point. Like for instance, I got my book, I've sort of written it, and it's filled with really, really eye-opening information, but it's almost like it's too ahead of its time. like the average people won't get it. So I think I'm supposed to just wait for a bit. So yeah, and I don't have any like abilities as in healing abilities or things like that. I know how it works, but I don't do much of it myself. So no.
And your artwork, do you sell that?
Yeah, well that's how I make my living. I've been self-employed artist for over years, so like that's all I do. I,
Okay,
I'm disconnected to most people's daily lives. So
okay. Yeah, so in the description box, I will include everyone's website and yours as well. So if you want to check out Robert Valentine's artwork, it will be in the description box. So thanks, Robert. Is there anything you want to add to that?
uh no, I'm just here to just try to piece this story together and inspire each other to go forward. So yeah.
Thanks, Robert. So Brian is next.
Okay. Thanks. It's great to be here with you all, and thanks for the invite, Samara. I am a volunteer organizer with the Full Disclosure Movement, Full Disclosure Now, Total Exposure, however you want to call it. Just like how Rob was speaking about this idea of discovery, disclosure, and dismantlement, I would take it we're in the disclosure phase. And I'd very much encourage Robert. Your material is probably definitely ahead of the way over the head of most normies, but don't let that deter you. I think this is a phase where we kind of put the message out there as coherently and as broadly as possible. And that's what I'm doing through my conferences now and interviews and shows like this. Um, and those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, will get them. Maybe some of the more reticent normies, they won't quite get it at the first, second, or third passes, but someday they will. And I just um, like to think, don't let the lowest common denominator hold us back. I'm taking my medical advocacy and organizing skills and applying them here to the full disclosure movement. And my first conference was just this last July with over 40 presenters, many of them, I mean, I'll say so myself, on a world-class level, people who are within the disclosure movement on the forefront with very valid information to share, like everyone here. And we're looking forward to our next event next year. And in the meantime, we've got a lot of other projects going forward. And a lot of my focus has been working directly with people who are survivors and whistleblowers of the secret space programs and the Montauk Project time travel um, operations for the most part. And then Galactic Federation, ET, Sasquatch contactees from there. Thank you.
It's such great work you're doing. I think because coming together is everything, really everything. And that was proved when COVID kicked off. Like so many of us stepped up to the plates and really, really brought our voices online.
Yeah, every dissenting voice was worth 1,000 or 10,000 people rolling up their sleeve for a donut.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah. So thank you, Brian. And before we get really into the weather and disclosure, let's go round and see who's up next. Jerry McKinney, which is an Irish name by the looks of it.
Yeah, Irish roots. Yeah, so my name is Jerry McKinney. I'm based in San Diego. My wake up experience really came by necessity, where I'd grown up in a very dogmatic Christian home, where it was sort of like a Christian MK Ultra, because it was Pentecostal, and so there were a lot of gifts of the Spirit. I did see exorcisms, healings, all kinds of supernatural kinds of things. But it was tied to a very strict type of moralistic code and assertion of what you should believe and how you should see the world. So I went through some pretty rough life experiences and got very blessed or lucky or whatever you call it to find somatic therapy. And that really became my vehicle for Wake Up, where it's less of the talk therapy route where you're just creating a narrative about your problems and more dealing with emotions that are stuck in the body. So a lot of people are familiar with The Body Keeps a Score, which is one of the top psychology books nowadays. But I actually went to a therapist for this kind of therapy and worked through a lot of that dogma, letting go of the fear of hell, which for people who grew up in a Christian home is a really massive thing, and was even seeing apparitions and dealing with pretty intense anxiety and fear. But gratefully, with the support that I had through my therapist, was able to get past all of that, and then really walked into this season of being a total hermit and spending all of my time alone and very deep in research and just going into strange occurrences. The Montauk experiment is something I'm very intrigued with, as well as the Philadelphia experiment and the MK Ultra stuff, because I feel some similarities with my childhood, maybe not to the same level of abuse, but the mind control aspects. And just going deep into the conspiracy theories and with this really intense bullshit meter that is saying, okay, like I don't want to be roped into the next group, into the next kind of groupthink kind of situation, or settle into a belief system. And so really becoming this spiritual free agent and not signing with the new team and wanting to, in a kind way, compassionate way, be able to point out, hey, this is off, or at least internally to recognize when things are off or when things have gone a little off kilter. And through all of this, ended up on this wild health journey, losing 50 pounds and like feeling like a mental fog that I've been under for more than 20 years lifted. And then wanting to take that a step further into something I have an extended background in with fashion. I'm working on a project right now with creating a clothing label that's based on high frequency fabrics and kind of reorienting and taking how fashion has been inverted, and like clothing can be something that's elevating on a spirit level, can be something that is beneficial health wise, but that's been inverted. It's been turned upside down. And our clothing has it's like a war against our body. It's like a war against our spirit and the fibers that are used and the kinds of environments that they're created in with the chemicals that they're treated with. Then it's getting into our bloodstream. It's blood brain permeable. It's forever chemicals that are highly difficult for us to take. And so I think this is kind of the next frontier within the health and wellness space, where people are really looking at their diet, they're really looking at their supplements, they're really looking at different therapies like red light, infrared, different things that they're able to do with frequency, with vibration that can increase their health. We're getting back to Wilhelm Reich. We're getting back to all of these people that were like Tesla, but for health application. And we're kind of regaining some of this information. Royal Rife now is becoming more of a name that people are understanding. His nephew or great nephew, Matthew Rife, has been re-emerging with this company and improving some of his products. But we wear clothes every day, and they're pretty unavoidable if you're going to be in society. But taking that and reorienting it and saying, okay, instead of the forever chemicals, how can we incorporate things that are beneficial to our health? We know through herbalists the kinds of things that are actually good for us, the essential oils or the different kinds of things that can even block out 5G, Wi-Fi, and the soup that we're in of this invisible battle against our health and wellness. We can invert that and reorient it. And that's a project I'm working on right now.
I think it's amazing what you're about to do with launching the clothing line. And it seems to me, as you're talking, what I'm seeing is like a domino effect of all the systems and the corruption and the negative agenda and the targeting and the chemtrails and the food and everything that has been weaponized and chemicalized and toxins added. And it seems to be like it's been a domino effect where everything has been there's been a disclosure within those, with the food and the big pharma and the weather and all kinds of things. And now it seems that we're going into a new, I don't know if that's the right words, but a new era where I think the next subject that people are going to become very aware of is that our clothing, there's been chemicals added to our clothing which are detrimental to our health. And a couple of crazy messages that I had years ago about clothing. Not that it's not really well, I guess it is relevant because it's clothing. But one of them was that the shoes that are made nowadays are really designed with the materials that are used. And that's not even to mention the chemicals that must be added to them. But the shoes the materials used in the shoes are designed to disassociate and disassociate us from the earth, not allowing the energy to come up from the earth. When we in the days of when we would have worn moccasins and shoes like that, because I'm sure all of us here have had past lives in Native America, for sure. And also the other message I had, which I can understand would sound crazy to a lot of people, but with the female clothing bras, with the underwire, I was told that the underwire actually causes cancer. Now I don't know how that happens, but that was two of the messages I was given about clothing.
If there's metal in the underwire, and if you sweat and the body heat and it leaches metal into you, heavy metals especially, right there, that might be bad.
Thank you,
And
Brian,
they
because I
they've
didn't
discovered
know
with
that.
feminine products that the chemicals that were used with feminine products were causing infertility and cancer. And this would also apply to our undergarments for men and for women. That I think there is a globalist agenda for depopulation. Like few people can argue that anymore when they're saying it outright. And if you really want to attack that, then get people to wear things that are going to impact their fertility. And so we're seeing more people wake up to like feminine products, but also the plastics that are used and the ways that these fabrics are manufactured. It's so I did want to bring up Heidi Yellen. She um, actually is like a practicing Essene and kind of interesting person tied in with the Gnostics. But she had done this study on the frequency of fabrics and found that linen and wool were at a 5,000, organic cotton, organic hemp, those kinds of things at 100. And then any kind of synthetic fiber was at a 0 to 5. And so to put that in perspective, a healthy human body is at a 100 hertz. A dead human body is at 0 to 5. And when you introduce that 5,000, then that type of elevation has actually been showed through studies. Like if you wrap a wound in flax, it will accelerate healing dramatically. So when we're wearing these undergarments that are literally tuning our body to death, what kind of impact is that going to have on fertility and on your health?
Yeah, it's
Can I
fascinating.
ask you a quick question there? So Jerry, I'm wearing a linen shirt, but then my socks, I'm wearing wool socks. I'm not wearing linen and then wool on top of each other, but I am wearing linen up here and then wool down there at my feet. Does that still cancel out?
Right. So you must be aware then of Deuteronomy in the Bible where it talks about not blending linen and wool. And
And
in
then
Heidi
apparently
Allen's
people have
research,
also
yeah.
and apparently people have tested this and it's true.
Yes. Yeah. So Heidi did test this and found that they ran in opposite directions. So while they're both 5,000, them running in opposite directions does cancel out the frequency.
No, does it
There,
matter if one's like I'm wearing a shirt up here and my socks down
right.
there versus like I'm wearing like a shirt and then that's wool and then a hoodie of linen or vice
Right.
versa,
Yeah,
you
so I
know?
do know with layering that there is an impact. So, like if you're wearing a shirt and then a sweatshirt, this is an area where we are needing more research because what I would like to do is test all kinds of different things with incorporating crystals into the garment, essentially creating an orgone energy device through an item. So then having the non-organic fibers is not going to impact when you're thinking of an orgone energy type device and different ways that we can do this. So I'm currently in the phase with the company of um, like I have all the concepts, like I'm in talks with different manufacturers, but I need to raise funding for the project. And part of that I want to do is I want to figure out the testing aspect because questions just like yours to be able to say, okay, like to scan someone and say, the frequency of your outfit is this number, or like this is where we see the stuck energy, or to have some kind of way at least to know simple answers to simple questions, like if I'm wearing wool socks and a linen shirt, are those canceling out?
That's great questions. So, and maybe we could get into that a little bit more later on. So Julia, you are up next.
Hi everyone. Okay, so I'm Julia. I'm a Violet Flame Chakra Awakened Rescue Healer. Most of my work is Violet Flame Keeper, Violet Flame Anchor. I do Akashic Record, energy work, and I'm a quantum crystal healer. I'm also an access consciousness practitioner as well. A lot of my work is based with people who are newly awakened and they're looking for their pathway. They're looking to be shown and discover a unique pathway for them. And moving them onto a journey of empowerment to really help them stand in their truth and get on their ascension journey and advance as well. So I do teach Reiki, different modalities and things like that. I have traveled all over the world and I spent most of my time, I spent about 10 years or so in India where I really connected into the violet flame over there in a deeper way because we're quite close to the crown chakra of the earth over there. So I'm working with Soma now to kind of reconnect to my galactic aspects, which is quite an interesting story. Some of you might see some videos coming up soon. Yeah, that's what I do a lot of public speaking in the UK. I talk mainly about crystals and helping people to understand these tools that are readily available to them, but they've just got no idea how to tune into their intuition and connect to these, these gifts that are on the planet from Mother Earth. So a lot of my work is earth healing and transmuting, that kind of thing. Yeah. So hello.
Thanks, Julia. And I have to say, what's coming to mind is that, and we spoke about this. This came up in your reading the other day, that so many of us are falsely led to believe that we're little Johnny or little Julia or little Robert or Jerry or Amber or Brian or
Yeah.
even Soma. That we're little, that we're these small, minute, insignificant beings that are powerless. And the very opposite is true. The very opposite is true. And I think more and more people are realizing that now. And I did a channeling yesterday where they were saying that we really need to, because I do channelings every week, and yesterday and I don't normally remember everything that they've said, but little bits of sections most of the time I remember. little bits. And yesterday, one of the things they were saying is that we need to now sit down individually as starseeds, or whatever label we give ourselves, healer or shaman or whatever it is, artist, because so what we need to do now, they were saying as starseeds, is we need to sit down and create a daily space, even if it's just 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and to start practicing and homing in on our abilities and advancing them using techniques, whether we are given these techniques through channeling or meditation or voices from the galactics. However we learn these techniques, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that we give time, we dedicate time to sit down and advance, because we are in the next phase or the next level. We are in ascension. So it's essential that we step up our game and go into the next level with our own abilities, such things like telepathy and moving objects with our mind. We may not all be at that level, but whatever level we're at, it's time now to own our own power and claim our abilities and to work on them. Things like even remote viewing, which has been used by certain organizations and governments, and some very nefarious groups, where they have taught remote viewing, and yet the society going back, I remember in the 80s, was very different to now, where everything was frowned upon, even the basic of psychic abilities. So anyway, that's something that I'm sorry for intervening there and chatting too much, but that I wanted to share that because I felt it's important that their message of that is that we need to step up to the next level. Whatever level we're on, we need to step it up. So I just wanted to add that. And also it's very important to realize that we're not just little Carol down the road or little David down the road. We are far more than that. And often often there's an imbalance with the family that we're born into and our role, or who we're perceived to be, and who we really are on a soul level. That can be there can be a huge gap there.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of the work that I do is confidence building. There's so many people out there that know that there's more to them, but they're not sure what it is. And it's finding that safe space as well. So one of the things we do at Anchor Haven is make that safe space for people that are so different to come together and really be themselves and start to talk about dragon realms and things like that, which a lot of groups you can't do that, and they look at you like you're nuts. My work next year will be bringing out a lot more of the starseed, the real ascension journey for people, because they're leveling up very, very quickly now, to the point of getting grid work ready and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. And it's just finding the right mentors as well. So I've done some training with Indigo Angel, which is really good. The grid work facilitator and other things like that is great. But it's in the UK, there's not a lot of that going on. It's all kind of dissected into little things, and it's quite hard to get into some of them as well. So we need a big wake-up call to get everybody onto the same kind of hymn sheet as well. Yeah, without ego and things like that. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's also what's coming to mind as you're talking is a lot of the subjects and the spiritual modalities have been segmented. Things like most especially kind of the shamanic stuff, but also the UFO movement or UFO disclosure. A lot of them are kind of segmented into different categories or different subjects. But to me, I see it from a different perspective. I see it's all part of the same thing, very much so. And so I think it would be lovely for society. This is just my personal view, but I think, and perhaps that's where we are going, but I think it would be lovely for society to, or us as a whole, to begin to piece all the pieces together, because they're all part of the same thing. And And something I'll just mention very quickly before Amber has a chance to introduce herself. And also, I would like to add that there won't be such a long introduction every week. This is kind of a first relaunch of the roundtables for me. So as we bring in new people every week, they'll have more of a chance to speak every week. Because I don't want the whole time to be taken up by introduction, but I feel it's important for everyone to introduce themselves. Yeah, I think that's it. So Amber, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello. Thanks for inviting me along today, and it's really good to speak to everyone and hear about everyone's journeys and what each person is about. So I a little bit like Julia. I work with a lot of different modalities. I've been on quite a journey, and I do healing, but I'm a teacher, mentor. I'm currently kind of in it, strangely enough, even though I'm sort of hiding away without my camera on today. I've been in a process of healing after quite a transitional year. Significant loss in my life, which I've navigated as best I can, and I'm at a point where I'm very aware that there is going to be a lot of new information coming through and almost a new direction that I'll be taking with my work as well. And I'm currently also in the process of rebranding my website to be more about who I am rather than my previous website. Angelic Light and Guidance kind of pigeonholes me more into working with the angels, which I still do, but the angelic work is probably less than 50% of what I do now. I work with ETs, I work with various different energies, ascended masters, and I also do something called mandala work, where I create some digital mandalas that help people to connect with certain frequencies, and including being able to help them connect with their higher selves. Not that you're not already connected, everyone's connected with their higher selves, but this helps people to be able to feel that connection and identify it in a better way and learn about their soul purpose as well. So I guess that's kind of a very brief introduction. It was really interesting hearing about 2014 being a wake up for Robert, and a big part of his journey, because 2014 is when I broke my back in a car accident. And that was my real kind of significant year of the angels coming in and saying, you've really got to start getting this work out there now. And I think that I wanted to say as well, with any work that we do, whether we be speaking, whether we are creating, there is often a lot of healing energy that is being a part of what we are putting out there. So even if it's art and sculptures, that can actually hold a lot of healing in itself, or activations of some kind, coding. There's all different ways that these energies will work with people when the time's right for them as well. So I find it really, really fascinating. I'm very excited to be here and part of a group connecting with like-minded souls, and I guess there may be times where I might not feel that what people are saying is like-minded, but I'm very open to learning and understanding and hearing different point of views. And I think that's what kind of called me when you said that you were going to be putting these back on again. So thank you again, and I'm gonna keep it short there. But yeah, thank you, and apologies again. I'm not 100%. I'm getting over some sort of virus, so yeah, I'm gonna keep fairly quiet, but hopefully that gives a little bit of information about who I am.
I'm just delighted that you're here, Amber. So thank you.
Thank you.
So there was yes, there was something I wanted to add there about there seems to be a whole program around setting us up, especially in the spiritual field, setting up people to work against each other because they have different beliefs. Maybe a lot of similar beliefs, and maybe some different beliefs within certain subjects or certain channeling information or channeled information, or certain disbeliefs where we chuck everything out with the bathwater, and there's a lot of trolling and a lot of division, which has been growing evidently since 2020, which is very much part of the negative agenda to divide and conquer, because they work with those types of dividing and conquering, which is a war tactic. So, and we are in a spiritual war. So I have a partner who sometimes very much disagrees with what I say or believe, and sometimes even what the Pleiadians are channeling. But we have a very deep understanding, very deep understanding that is okay. We don't have to agree with each other because we are different people. We have different backgrounds. We have different belief systems. We have sometimes even a different language. We have or vocabulary. We have, unique perspectives, and we're both of a very equal energy, although he is he leads in certain areas that I don't, and then I lead in other areas where I'm stronger. So there's a real balance, and it would be lovely for people to, maybe I'm kind of dreaming or rose-tinted glasses, but it would be lovely for people to recognize that division and dividing and conquering and trolling is all, and putting us at war with each other, is all part of a negative agenda to divide us. So yeah, having said that, I do believe there are I don't really believe it. I kind of know it, that there are agents within the spiritual field that are put into the spiritual field to disrupt and cause havoc and cause a disbelief, and also to unsteady the truth of what we really of finding the truth and what we believe. So I'm going to pause there, and I think that would be a good space to go into the weather. And I don't want to dominate this at all. So if we go around and maybe just go around the group and each talk about the weather and our beliefs on that, and what is really going on with weather manipulation and technology. And I'm not limiting that really to the weather. I'm also including things like tsunamis and hurricanes, and which I guess is weather, but
Can I jump in, Soma?
yeah, if you want
Because
to go first, Brian.
because
Yeah.
you keep referring it to weather, and I keep referring it and others as weather warfare. And all over my own social feeds, I've got the people even doing videos and showing the screenshots of weather maps where it looks like rogue elements in our government are utilizing, at least here in the United States, utilizing these NextRad and SBX1 installations in coordinated patterns to literally ramp up and direct and drive the hurricanes in conjunction with chemtrailing as well. And so this is all very well documented and patented. During the Vietnam War, Operation Camille, I believe was the name, where they were causing typhoons or just giant weather rain dumps, atmospheric rivers of water to hit that region. And um, for Hurricane Helene in the aftermath of that, because it's not normal for a hurricane to make landfall on Florida coming off either the Atlantic side or the Gulf Coast and to actually accelerate and speed up because generally the most of the energy of the hurricanes comes from the heat of the water from these bodies of water. And not only that, the Hurricane Helene went all the way up and inland to hit north of Asheville, Carolina, which is 300 miles inland and over 2,000 feet in elevation. And none of that was natural. People documented heavy chemtrailing, aerosolizing in the region at the time. They've got the weather satellite readouts, which show that, let's say, um, this is Florida over here, okay? And this is the rest of the continental United States. They were basically, and I don't know if it's swapped on my camera, so forgive me, but um, the continental US was like all these NextRad installations polka dotted, all just evenly distributed throughout the continental US. They were all pulsing, forming basically a mass wall. And then this hurricane was like building up by bouncing off of this mass wall. And that's where it moved up and inland and walloped Hurricane Asheville, especially Chimney Rock area, for example. And so in the wake of that, many of us put out a call online to our friends, whoever, to employ, some of us call it the Maharishi effect or mass quantum entanglement or group prayer. And according to Christopher Jacobs and his contacts, who include the forest people or Sasquatch, he likewise telepathically communicates with different beings and groups. They said that humanity, our collective efforts, we knocked Hurricane Milton, the follow-up storm, which is perhaps a natural storm, but again being ramped up by these rogue elements using this weather warfare technology. We knocked it down from a 5 to a 3. And when you look at the weather radar maps on there, you saw the usual weather warfare, but you also saw Hurricane Milton. Once it hit Florida on the West Coast, right by Tampa, right where we're holding our conferences, not only this July, but next July as well, the eye wall totally collapsed and it went from a 5 to a 3. Having said that, what Christopher or the Sasquatch people via Christopher, what they also said is the reason why there were all those little mini hurricane tornadoes that spun off of that big Milton is that there are groups and entities on the negative side trying to ramp up Hurricane Milton, just like with Hurricane Helene. And when the eye wall of the main body of the hurricane was broken up, that made the these entities were still there and they still were trying to do their own little spinning up. And that's where they became the smaller, broken up, dispersed hurricanes, or tornadoes rather, which still did a lot of damage, but nowhere near as much as what Helene wreaked. And just one last thing on this. Another report is that there are people in our community who they are in communication with fairies and weather elementals and nature spirits. And what these beings were saying was that the Hurricane Helene and Milton and probably similar is to a large extent out of their hands because it's man-made technology that's driving these storms. It's one thing, it's Mother Nature and they can calm that, but it's hard for them to fight these giant radar ionization arrays, including HARP and other technologies.
Can I just jump in there very quickly, because one of the things I wanted to add to that is that it's becoming very obvious that when so many of us did meditations to curtail these technologies and devastating events, such as Milton, it's becoming known the impact that we're having. So, and that is something that the Pleiadians are also really encouraging. It seemed to be really encouraging us at the moment, including myself, to become more aware of our own abilities, our own effect that the mind can have on situations halfway across the world. It doesn't have to be local. So I just wanted to add that there.
Yeah, I was going to say something about that. Yeah, I agree. As far as we're being watched, and also they're mitigating some of these uh, things that have been happening to us as much as they can. But yes, there's just kind of this battle of wills going on between the control. I call them the controllers, but it's a control system that's trying to basically take control of everything, and they're losing, and they know it. But it's almost like we're being watched to see. It's almost like a challenge where if we can somehow fight this with our own energy down here, and that means we're all waking up to our powers. So that's kind of what's going on too, as far as fighting this.
Yeah, apparently, there are people who are channeling via remote viewing and by location to humans in the future. Now, it might not necessarily be this Earth timeline because timelines shift, but there's certain consensus things like I'm sure the Palladians and other positive benevolence would encourage is this concept in the new Earth, decades down the road from now, humanity, we reach that point where we're more telepathic and that's empathic and group mind, not hive mind in a bad way, but more like we care about each other. It's going to be a lot harder to walk by someone on the street starving or with a wounds or whatever and keep walking in the new earth. And so the more we're now, especially in these more formative years of the ascension, the awakening, where this kind of that ramp up curve, the things that we do now have a greater effect than say 20 years from now.
Yeah, I agree, and I think instead of like you said, it's like not necessarily a group mind. It's more like a collective consciousness that it's almost like we all become more empathetic. We all have different degrees of empathy for each other, but so like some of us that have that skill, we sense other people's feelings or pain or whatever. But yeah, we'll definitely be more connected in the future. So I agree. Yeah, that's where we're heading.
Yeah, I think more the words I would use is more in tune with each other, more conscious with each other, more aware of each other. And I think that's hugely to do with ascension and where our consciousness is growing and developing and collectively going to a next level where we will have these very natural abilities that have been squashed and dumbed down.
Well, yeah, and for me, I know that I've got a lot of these skills just like everybody else. We're just sort of waking up to them. But being an empath, for me, I've had to really be careful, sort of almost choosy of where I live and who I hang out with and what I do because I sense people's, especially sorrow. Like I have a really hard time going to funerals because I feel everybody's sorrow so much. It's overwhelming. So that's, I mean, I'm just using that as an example, but I'm just saying, yeah, it's like your vibration gets higher and you're more in touch with everybody. Not only will we have more telepathic skills, but also, like I said, our feelings will become more, for the lack of better words, entangled and you know closer to each other, so we'll know how we're like this mass feeling. So
Thank you. So who would like to go next?
I would like to hop in for a second. I was hoping we'd get into this with the idea of connection with other people. And I had heard this quote recently that everyone's a little right. And if we have more of that perspective, that instead of going around fixing, correcting, or controlling others, that we can recognize that each person's on their individual path and they have an individual mission. And while we should rightly call out things like them hurting others or causing massive disruptions in community or in society, to have less of this attitude, you should think exactly like me or believe exactly like me. And I think that it comes back to that we all have come from one thing. And whether you see that through a theistic kind of view or you see that through a source kind of view, I think most of us can say, and we don't have to agree on it, that maybe we come from more of a similar root at the very least. And in that, I think we became individual, we became multiple for the sake of expressing individual and these individual experiences that we have. And it makes life more nuanced and interesting to have so many different paths and so many different ideas, so many different beliefs, different religions, different ways of doing life. But the amount of friction that we have in today's globalism and how connected we are in a global sense, it's reaching a fever pitch, it seems like, where people are becoming these polar opposites or these very intensified versions of whatever they grew up in and whatever they think and believe. And they're finding these micro circles of people that think exactly like them, and then using that to attack other people and tell other people they're wrong constantly. And what that gets in the way of is us actually influencing the world in a positive manner and just having these really positive intentions about where we want to go, about that we want people to be safe, we want people to be fed, we want people to have a place of residence or a place to call home. And really, the only reason that 30,000 people die daily from abject poverty, 30,000 people a day die from abject poverty. The only reason for that is greed. And maybe not the people here in this group, or maybe not the people we always blame, because it's not really about blame. It's just a recognition of the problem that we have an issue of being influenced by dark forces, being influenced by families that have perpetuated abuse, being influenced by terrible programs that have been weaponized against us, to be divided against one another, to normalize that 30,000 people would die a day just because they don't have resource. But I did put a link, by the way, in the chat. As far as the weather manipulation, it's a really incredible website that has all the government documents on the actual programs that they've initiated. And so if you have someone in your life that is like, this weather stuff, shut up, like you don't know what you're talking about, like there's no way they could do any of this, it gives really detailed information that it converts people pretty quickly to the idea that, okay, yeah, there is something going on.
Thanks. Thanks, Jerry. Will you please send that link to me in either Telegram, Facebook, or email? I
Yeah.
put my email into the chat.
Sure, I'll send it now.
Thank you. I think we have. Oh, is there anything else you wanted to add to that? Did you want to say anything about the weather warfare?
So there have been a few people that are out there blowing the whistle as far as the historic government programs. There is some disagreement within different groups whether or not these recent events were manufactured. I would probably lean toward what Brian is saying about these being very deliberate and the way that they're being manipulated. And the redirection thing is one of the things they can do the most easily. There's like a black powder that they're able to disperse into these storms that will redirect them quite easily. As far as creating a hurricane or something from nothing, there is some interesting research. Topher Gardner is a great guy on this. So he specializes in building domes and kind of these domiciles that are based more on organic types of shapes and sacred geometry. He's incredible for all of this, but he brought attention to the fascia. So if you notice in the United States, even a lot of our monuments, they'll have these fascia. And the occult researchers are always bringing that back to fascism. And I think there is some credence to some of these ideas and with the Freemasonry and the history of the United States. However, there is this alternate theory that Topher has put forth that these fascia are actually a weather manipulation device that we've had for thousands of years. And it's this type of bazooka type of thing that will shoot up into the atmosphere and be able to have different effects. So I think we are recognizing more and more of the clues that this isn't even just a recent thing, just like a CIA, FBI, United States government or World Economic Forum type of thing. But this is something that goes back thousands and thousands of years that we're finding ways to update the technology. We're finding ways to make them more lethal and to cause more death and suffering, unfortunately.
Thanks, Jerry. Amber, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. So with the weather stuff, I'm kind of very open to what's being said about there being a lot more government control over what's going on with the weather. I do believe that there is also that is made easier because of what we've done to the planet, right? That's made easier because unfortunately humans have abused Mother Gaia. They have abused the resources, and they have allowed the environment to be impacted in the way that it is. So I'm kind of, from my perspective, I don't profess to know the scientific stuff or have evidence. My feeling and my belief and my guidance is that it is going to get an awful lot worse before it gets better, because it is part of this bigger journey that we're on, this mass awakening. It is all part of that, about people realizing how much is actually controlled, how much is their responsibility as well. And it is that there's this kind of, like, as I talk about it, this balancing effect of people realizing that they need to take responsibility to move forward in the right way. And what Jerry was saying about the thought processes and the way that people are and how there's this divisiveness. As he was talking, I was just seeing AI being very prevalent in these groups. AI going in and stirring it up and telling people what they want to hear and encouraging this negative behavior towards other groups that don't agree with them, rather than being open to, well, let's listen to what other people have got to say. So my guidance is very much about continuing to, from my perspective, continuing to speak from the heart, to allow my heart to guide me and encourage others to do the same, to be guided by the heart and understand that we are one. We are all connected. Then I'm hurting myself and I'm hurting everyone else that I love as well. And so it sounds really simplistic to say that, but that is the core of it. We are all one. This unity consciousness is what we need to build. And then once we can create more of those beliefs and that pattern within society and encourage it within children and people that are just awakening, I really feel that there is a that is where change will start to happen, because people will realize that they, like you said as well, that there is that more, it's more than, you know, where we might be small in certain respects, but like the ants, when we come together, we can create the most incredible things. So it's, yeah, that's my belief.
That's so true, Amber. That's so
Can I,
true.
can I speak to developments in the disclosure, ufology, paranormal communities, and maybe give a little bit of an overview, and I'm sure everyone will want to chime in on that, and then maybe discuss like current events and then where we're going. But historically, it seems like a lot of the ufology research has it took many years just of the early pioneers coming out to even talk about UFOs and flying saucers and deal with the chuckle factor, and all the trolls and smears. And then at the same time, as they were getting out the data for people to even begin to catch on to this, they themselves, the brightest lights, were being targeted and often silenced, neutralized, bought off, killed off, whatever, silenced, and not in a good way. And now we're here at, I call it like the Dolores Cannon, where peak of the second wave. A lot of the first wavers were generation prior to many of us here. I'm 49, so like I put like people who are like in their like 60s and older than that, and I'm kind of like late second wave perhaps, or no, I'm about right second wave, of the Dolores Cannon tradition of people coming here as like star seeds and light workers to help be part of humanity as we're all ascending together. And unfortunately, as we've gotten to here, as those brightest lights were targeted and silenced, there have been many groups that were begun by these same people and begun in earnest that have themselves been infiltrated. And then, you know, and I'll name names, there's um, a lot of evidence out there, and there's a lot of great people in MUFON, for example, and they care and they're reporting great data. But then what stops MUFON, and I'm not trying to sow paranoia, I'm just saying beware from getting access to all their databases and then targeting the ones that they want and then going from there. And that's not because it started off as a bad organization. I'm saying it's a great organization that you have to be careful for compromises. And that's just one aspect of where we've gotten to today. And so now many people, now that we've got the technology to do our own podcasts and websites and monetize and subscriber bases and throw conferences much more easily than we could in the past, we're doing so. And yet the other side is still sending in agents, or they've got people who they mean well in general, but they have alters or implants which may get triggered by the other side at certain key times, to disastrous effect often. And I'm not trying to undermine the message of a unity message, but not by any means. What I'm trying to say is that there seems to be this, a path to unity, because we need to have the group discussions to come together, to come to a consensus, because we don't all agree on everything. Not only do we need to come to a consensus that yes, there are MK Ultra underground military programs and bases on the moon and Mars and beyond, and secret fleets in space, and bad ETs and good ETs that are um, interacting with humanity throughout our history. That's just like a base level of like the layout that we're all in. And then we need to agree or disagree upon various principles. There are people in our community who rightly, or not rightly, but they personally believe that all ETs are in the main good. And then there are other people who say all ETs are bad, like they're all abduction programs. It's all brainwashing. We don't even agree on that. There are people who um, maybe they were in the programs and they are very much legit. I will not ever discount their testimonies, but maybe in the here and now, they're trying to milk their testimony for clicks, and then they may bring on people onto their shows that get clicks but aren't as authentic or legitimate or have a skewed agenda. And um, for me, what I found and what I've been trained in as an organizer is if we're going to call it out, it's not, oh, these people are bad people, or I'm not going to give them Freudian. Oh, I get a bad feeling when I look at that person because I don't like their face. No, 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 not like that. It's always going to be very data laden and driven. Here's the situation. This is what happened. The person said this, and this is why I think that's a red herring. I'll just before I shut up here, I'll give one example, which is pretty classic. Dr. Stephen Greer with David Grush did like a Pentagon press conference earlier this year, I believe it was, and David Grush provided a lot of amazing evidence and testimony, and I thought that was wonderful. And at the very end of it, the reporters, they all have Dr. Greer up there at the table where they're all lined up, and they ask him at the mic, well, Dr. Greer, what's your analysis of this? And he said, well, basically, there are no bad ETs. We humans, we're the bad ETs. And it's like, wait a second, no. No, it just flies in the face of so much research and evidence, including evidence that he himself has access to. And so I see that as someone who, although I may like him personally, I think that he's been compromised at whatever level, whether he's been bought off, and that means he's sold out, or he's been threatened. And I, in which case I'm sympathetic to that. I'm not like F that guy. I'm like, okay, maybe he's having to say stupid garbage like that at the end of a gunpoint.
I totally agree with you. And uh, um, Dr. Stephen Greer is someone who I used to admire when I first discovered him, until I realized that he was publicly announced stating that, his beliefs, that his so-called beliefs, that there are no negative ETs, which is highly impossible. I don't agree with that at all. Even from the standpoint of, everything that exists there's always an opposite, and I've had a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but I've had experience with of being taken on board a ship by Greys. So I know there are negative ETs and also reptilians. And the Pleiadians have never said to me, oh, there's no such thing as, I mean, just look at the world today. It's very obvious to the likes of many people, the likes of us especially, that the governments are run by negative ET energies, and the royal families and the elite families and the technology that they use. It's just incredible that he would say something like that. And I don't like, I'm unlike you, Brian, I don't like naming names, but I'm definitely not a follower of Stephen Greer.
Actually, so I I just say it's kind of like I'm one of those people where I feel it's my job in the community where part of me doesn't like it, but knows I have to do it, and so that's why I'll do it. And then if I'll do it, I'll back it up. And if the person would ever deign to speak to me, and they don't like my criticism, I'm always happy to speak with them. I'm not just going to block them. They'll know where I'm coming from.
Yeah. I do think he's been infiltrated. I believe his first wife was taken out. I think it was his first wife or a relationship he was in. I do believe, and he seems to be well aware from the interviews I've watched, where he was well aware that his relationship or his wife was taken out quite a number of years ago. And I do think he's been infiltrated, most definitely, because it's impossible for there not to be negative ETs. In the same way that there are angels and there are demons, there is good and bad, light and dark, that there is always polar opposites. So who is up next? I've kind of forgotten.
I was just going to say that, yeah, I agree with you, Brian. And, there's nothing wrong with saying it how you see it, because, I talk about that with my friends. I say, yeah, there's certain people, but I don't. I agree with you in the way that it's like I don't throw them out with the bathwater, like with baby with the bathwater thing. It's like more like I look at it like they probably got compromised or they're being blackmailed or something. And there's always a story behind all this. So, especially people that are really, really touching on a lot of truth, they'll somehow they'll be targeted in that way. They're going to go, you know what, we got to get at this person because a lot of people are starting to really believe what he's saying. So let's do something to turn it around.
Can I give a real life example? I got a real life example, I think, that speaks exactly to what you're talking about here, Robert.
Yeah.
Our good friend Drago Reed, okay, presented at my conference, 2024 Full Disclosure Now conference in this last July. And he told me, I just spoke with him yesterday, he's never been hit with so much targeting except for like in the aftermath of just speaking at my event. And a lot of people were targeted. They spoke about this and almost felt like there were a lot of obstacles just trying to get to the event. But having said that, then the event pretty much went off without a hitch. Although the other side kind of tried to mess with us on our live stream electronically, glitch us up a little bit. I understand. But after that, there's a mutual friend of ours who, he had a personal relationship with friend of ours, and she was literally getting voice to skull community messages because they were in the programs together. The Montauk Project, by the way. And she was literally getting voice to skull communication to harass him, destroy him, mess him up, like stalk him, tell the community that he raped you and because you're a woman and he's evil or whatever. And she literally told the voices, these communications, no, F off, I'm not doing it. And right after, like 15 minutes after she literally put her foot down, this other person who's a huge stalker of his, she began doing these crazy psychotic posts about how he did X, Y, and Z to her and blah, blah, blah. And this is stuff that she says is so outlandish. No one believes it, but it doesn't look good. But that's one example right there.
Yeah, no, that's a really good example. And yeah, that's why I noticed that myself because I started my little YouTube channel. I think I have 3 followers. But I noticed that when I started saying something a little too close to the target, they would actually take that video either or stop me from posting it, or I get major targeting or something. So I backed off because going back to what you were talking about earlier, not just the Dolores Cannon stuff, but also they told me years ago that I'm a third waiver. So I'm kind of lucky because I get to sort of watch how this first and second wave and go through all this stuff. And it's like I really feel bad for them because yeah, there's people out there who purposely are trying to stop this movement. Absolutely. And then
Oh yeah, we had
I mean,
people at our conference who are getting targeted, and an implant was activated in someone. They're basically the impression that I was told was that like the agents, the other side, like the the people who are against our disclosure movement, like the men in black types, will come in, their equipment will fit in literally like the size of a suitcase, and then just within the area, they'll put out certain frequencies targeting different various individuals that they're perhaps already locked into or want to target.
yep, yeah, I agree. And for me, even when I just as silly as this might sound, but just even after this Zoom with you guys. I know that, for instance, I'll probably have some repercussions for doing it too. Because I've been targeted a lot longer than I thought. I mean, it became really obvious, but I've been hit with microwaves over the last, well, 10 years in particular. They really ramped it up. And then there's times where I would just go without being hit for a while, and then it would come back, whatever. So I've had to make this ultimate Faraday cage that I sleep under, because
Nice.
I mean, that's the best time to hit someone not moving, because it's hard to hit a moving target. It
And to
sounds so,
abduct you, it might make it harder for them to abduct you and lock in on you.
yeah. And I know they know, and everybody always kind of asks me this, even people that are aware of this. It's what it is everybody has a very unique DNA, uh, signature, but also for us that are well of going, it's yeah, they know exactly who we are. So it's not as if like I'm a new kid on the block or something. And they've locked into me, like I said, years and years ago. Now that I look back at it, because there was always these unexplained muscle cramps or whatever. But anyway, once I started realizing it and they ramped it up, like I said, I've had to protect myself, because I can't get a decent night's sleep unless I'm underneath my shield, because it's just constant. So it's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, and that is, I think you're speaking to so many people, and this is a subject I really love talking about, because the more people know, the more people are aware of it. And I think that so many people, like 20 years ago maybe, or in the 80s, were so unaware of the fact that we do get targeted. And I'm the same as you, and so many other people. Every time I do something public, um, I get hit or targeted. And it was very much a pattern of, I'd go online and do something and then I'd get targeted. And that seems to be because the more the more time goes on, the more work I'm doing and putting myself out there more. So the targeting is less. But something you were talking about just now is that, which I've heard before, and I'm of the same viewpoint, is that um it's sorry, I've gone blank. Which is also, I mean, you guys know that's a sign of being targeted, but
I've been targeted since the 80s and from an early age, and people are finding this out.
yes, and one thing, thanks,
Yeah,
Brian, that reminded
I
me
said
of what I was going to say. But you were saying, which I think is really important, Rob. You were saying it's gone again. Would you believe it? So okay, so there seems to be a pattern there where people speak out and they target them and home in on them. So what has been coming to my mind, or I've been becoming more aware of lately, is that they must just have a certain amount of people who are the targeters, people that are the agents. Let's call them agents, for want of a better word. Or maybe that's very apt, but let's call them agents who are targeting individuals like yourself and others in this group as well, knowingly or unknowingly. Where we get targeted, and then it gets heavy, and then it gets lighter and heavy and lighter. What I'm becoming aware of is that they must have a certain amount of people, and that's it. Because otherwise they would be targeting everyone equally all at the same time, and they're not. They seem to be targeting people, focusing in and then focusing out, in and out, in and out all the time across the board. So that tells me that there's only a certain amount of them.
Well, no, this is some information I've learned over the last 5 years in particular. Is well, there's basically two questions that you have to ask when this is going on. Is who's doing it and why, and then also how. So it's like, and this is where I went down the rabbit hole quite extensively. But also because I got a chip in the back of my head, they've been explaining it to me over for the last few years, and they said, yeah, Well, first of all, the people that are targeted are obviously the people that are part of the movement, and we're trying to help people wake up. Okay, so and number two question is, well, first of all, who's doing it? And it's the controllers, but basically, why is because they don't want a mass awakening of people. So it's like they're trying to, well, they can only sort of control it in a way of slowing it down as best they can because they know that it's pretty much inevitable, whether they have access to Looking Glass or not. But they know that we're going to wake up on a massive scale. Now, how it plays out, I'm sort of just watching that. But as far as like when you ask yourself, it's like, well, if you're thinking, well, are they just some people that sit in a car or park van out front or something, and they wait for you to fall asleep before they hit you or something? No, this is explained to me years ago. There's satellites they've been using. And they've had access to these for a long time. And also there's AI. There's AI that basically they know our frequency or whatever it is, and they know when we're not moving. That's who's been hitting me. It's an AI system, and that's why there's really no malice behind it. They're not there to try to kill me or something. They're just given information, whether it's a computer or not, just to hit this person, whatever. And so I usually get hit on my wrists or my ankles. There's other places, whatever, in my head. But that's my story. But I'm just saying there's partial AI that's behind this targeting movement, and it's also with satellites. Now, knowing that, you go, okay, well then, can't we just shoot those satellites down? Well, again, I've asked the group that I'm with, and they said they did it on an old timeline. They on an old timeline that they were doing that in, they realized, okay, not only was it booby trapped, but they said something bad happened. So they realized, okay, it's not about destroying these satellites. So now on this timeline that we're on now, this is a bizarre concept, so I can tell you guys, but I'm just saying, what they said is they're dismantling them, and they're dismantling, and then they're changing. They want to use the same technology, but to heal. So they're whatever it was that they were. So it's taking a while for them to play this out, because there's another reason why is a lot of these satellite systems that they're using are so far away. There's some a lot of them were based on the moon and around our planet, but then there's some as far away as Saturn, they explained to me, and they're cloaked.
That's a Saturnian black cube technology.
Yeah. And not only that, not only are they cloaked, but there's some that are actually higher dimensional. What I mean is they said 6D. It's like it's on a frequency. It's very similar to when we try to see colors that are just not there. It's completely out of our vision. We can never ever see it with our naked eye or even a telescope. It's just physically it's phase shifting out. It's not even in. So anyway, this is kind of a complicated thing, and they've explained it to me for years, and I'm just sort of watching it play out. And as they take them out, they slowly give me updates of what's going on, like percentage. So anyway, I'm just telling you the information that I was given.
You've got such a wealth of information, Rob, and yeah, I think you should write a book. That's what I think. So would I know the time is getting on. Would anyone like to add anything to that, Jerry or Julia or Brian?
I think, yeah, I mean, I didn't think I was a targeted individual until quite recently, but when I play back what's happened in the last 2 years, I don't sleep. I wake up in the middle of the night with program running through my mind, negative phrases and things like that. And what came to mind as you were talking is when I was at a Mind Body Spirit Fair in York, and I was staying in a field. I was camping, but that day I'd had a session with another quantum holographic restructure, and we did some really deep work. We really did some deep work in the quantum field together. and I'd done a talk and to about 70 people, nothing out of ordinary. But then I went back to that tent, and the amount of negative words that were coming in, voices, very clear voices that weren't mine, and for me that was a real new thing. I'd not had anything like that before, really negative. And I was in a field with no other tents there or anything like that. It was really bizarre. And but negative like radio waves coming in the night became quite normal. I sleep on the floor now. I sleep down as low as I can get basically these days. And then recently, as I was saying to Soma in a session, I was sitting outside, and I live in the city, you know, and above there's loads of seagulls. I live by the River Mersey, on the west coast of the UK by Liverpool. So we have massive seagulls here, really big. And they just started to flock around outside of my house above a street lamp. And they flew into what I presume is like a UAP. I have no idea. It was something that was cloaked. And they just slapped right into it. And it must have been, I don't know, 10 feet high, maybe. And then they kind of stunned itself, flew around it. Right. And then that same day, I was doing a Zoom with my ladies group, and we had an AI join us on the Zoom as another person. And we don't use the chat, so there was nothing in the chat at all, but this person entered, and at first it took on the same name as somebody else on the Zoom, and then it changed to a different name. And I was in the middle of, you know, doing a talk. So then when I questioned it, it responded, but obviously not quite as we would talk. It had like an American London accent. And when I started to ask it questions, it would respond. And then when I really queried, it disappeared. So, and we could all feel it. That was a negative AI joining us, scanning the session. Yeah. And then it went. So then I started to think, okay, maybe I am targeted. Yeah.
Yeah. Something I want to, thanks for sharing that, Julia. So years ago, the Pleiadians, they showed me that we are, because as starseeds, we are tracked and traced somehow through technology from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, almost chipped, because we're starseeds. And it's almost using some type of, I won't say almost, it's using some type of technology that's placed into our from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. So they know, the negative agenda knows who we are before we do as children, which is why, in my understanding, some of us have had such negative or trauma as children, and we get targeted as children. And from my understanding is that trauma is part of it, because they are I mean, some of the things I could share, but so I had this dream when I was about 8. No, I was older than that. I must have been about 12. I must have been about 12. Anyway, I was between 8 and 12, and I dreamt of this. I was very used to leaving my body as a child. So I did a lot of astral planing in the dream time. And I had this one dream of being in this glass building, and it was really beautiful. It was a beautiful modern glass building. Everything was glass. The outside was glass, the inside was mostly glass. And it was a few years ago now, I think maybe a year or 2 ago, that very recently I saw this building on, I don't know why it took me so long, but I saw this building on a movie. And it's actually, and like I couldn't believe it when I saw it, but it's actually the MI5 building in London. So they do track and trace us from lifetime to lifetime, and as we get targeted so much so in this lifetime, I believe because to do with ascension, and we are the seeds to bring great change. So it's no wonder. I mean, it's no wonder that they're so that they're doing everything they can, because it is a war between the light and the dark. And the other thing I would like to add to that is they also showed me in the very early days when I started to first consciously channel, in 2009 or 2010, they showed me this book, and it was a beautiful book, not in the sense that it had a beautiful cover or anything, because it was just plain, I think, but the energy from it was so beautiful. And in the book they showed me there was a list of all our names, so the Pleiadians are aware of all of the starseeds on Earth, and therefore so must the negative agenda. But this book, it was just so beautiful, the energy it carried with it, and the even the abilities, because they also said recently, and Rob was talking about this just now, but recently they've said, for me, they've come up with a lot of new information recently, which is just great. And it's kind of funny or ironic to me, because half of it I don't remember. When I'm not in that state, I'm not in that state. So, but our fingerprints are as unique. We are as unique as our fingerprints. So all starseeds could have very similar fingerprints, but we are as unique as our fingerprints. So we are all extremely individual. There's no two, even twins. Twins are unique. So those
Yeah.
one more thing I'll just very quickly share, just very quickly, and then I'll turn it over to you, Rob. So because it's important, and then I'll shut up. But one of the downloads I had, I think it was about a week before Helena, is that there would be bad weather hitting America, and I see it. When I see it, it's kind of goes from the East Coast to the West Coast, and it goes kind of in a straight line, not a straight line, but it's kind of ziggy zaggy, so it goes up and down. But there does seem to be some kind of pattern or area, not pattern, but area of Middle America where it goes, the bad weather and situations or conditions that are manipulated into being go from the East Coast to the West Coast. But I do see California as being very much part of that, an area that to be hit. And I don't really see Alaska. That's not to say it won't be hit, but I don't really see it. So, and I see different kind of circles where in different areas. So that's not to say that it will go directly from the east to the West Coast, because that I don't see that happening. I just see different areas being affected at different times, randomly almost. I'm sure it's not random, but it will appear to normies to be random. So I'm sorry for talking so much. I'll shut up now.
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to clarify as far as them identifying us. It's an energy signature. Because I mean, when you understand the big story, we all realize that actually we are just a ball of energy. We're spirit, and we're inhabiting physical forms. And we've done this many times even on different planets, as everybody sort of is going to wake up to. But we're eternal beings, so that signature is known, especially to whoever's trying to track us in particular. So, but that's who we really are. These physical bodies are just inconsequential. This is my third time into Earth. I've only been an Earth human 3 times. I'm extremely old. I've done a lot of these before, but it's just that a lot of people just aren't aware of them, is what it is. Because whenever you come in to a new physicality, basically how it works is you completely have amnesia. You completely wipe out your memory as a physical being, so everything is new. We do it on purpose, but the same technology, obviously the nefarious beings that are controlling us, they know how to wipe out our memories as well. So they use it in bad ways. But normally how we do this, it's more of a positive thing. It's more like, well, I want to play this game, but I don't want to know how it ends. And I don't want to go in there with any preconceived ideas. I just want to just play this out. That's generally how we've done these before. this Earth itself is just completely compromised and hijacked. That's why we're here to fix it. But I'm just saying that's normally how these systems work. So, but yeah, as far as them identifying us, yeah, they know who we are. As a matter of fact, well, I know I've told you before, Soma, that I'm a walk-in. So this body that I'm inhabiting. I didn't come into this body until it was a 5-year-old boy. It was a 5-year-old boy that died, and then I took over. Um, I wasn't aware of that until 2014, but then they showed me how I came in. And just to wrap this up, the reason why I did that, and I can't speak for all walk-ins in particular, but I'm just saying they were trying, not they, but me and the five beings that are with me, were trying to sneak into this reality through the back door, because it's almost like you're mixing a signature of someone that was here before me, and then I took over. So we were trying to be covert when we came in this time to try to sneak under the radar. That's kind of what they explained. But sooner or later they found out who and what where I was after all. So
Thank you, Rob. Is there anyone else that would like to step in? I kind of feel that we should probably close it up because it's coming up to 9, and well, there's been such great information that's been shared this evening, and I'm very much looking forward to more of these. Would anyone else, like Jerry? Is there anything, or Julia?
Yeah, if there's time, I just want to say, like, we know there's a lot going on that's attacking us. Like, they want to kill 7 billion people. That's a depopulation agenda. And then the remaining people they want to control. So they want people who are dumb, who are sick, and who don't realize how special they are.
Yeah.
And we are so special. And I think that I'm seeing this attack on a really broad scale. I'm seeing it with star seeds and people who are speaking out and who are discovering truths and who are trying to disseminate those. But I also see it with family members that are totally asleep. That there's an attack on them too. There's an attack that's pretty broad scale. And I think we're in a pretty rough crisis of trust. And speaking back to some of the things we were talking about earlier with people who are involved in disclosure, and even podcasters and mental health professionals, with self-help kind of people, psychologists, religious leaders, it is so difficult to tell who we can trust in these times. And at a point, I was almost like wanting to create a website that breaks down their stances on different things. And this is where they might be off, or this is where we might disagree with them. But I came to this realization, we're in this era where there's so much truth, there's so much revelation. And what I'm not seeing quite as much is wisdom. And wisdom, it seems like this ancient thing. I think that we've seen it dying off in kind of this age of mentors and mentorship get swallowed up by the boomer generation. I don't mean to attack them, but they bought into the capitalism thing, and everything became for money and about money. And we all need to provide for ourselves. But when we're under that kind of structure, then it does shift away from a wisdom culture. And it's all about success. It's all about results. It's all about being able to achieve. And I do wonder if we can shift back into a wisdom mode where it's not about, can I trust this person? Can I not trust them? It's everyone has some wisdom that we can glean from. And it's more of this heart-centered thing. I think that we have moved up into the head very much with much of the truther movement, where we're trying to figure things out. We're trying to piece it together. And we're a bit addicted to that dopamine hit of, I discovered this thing, I unlocked this thing, I put the pieces together. And it's very beneficial, extremely beneficial to humanity. And the work that all these people do to help reveal these things in these programs and what happened and what the government's done and all of this, it's very important. But to me, it's not about just moving directly into the heart and forgetting the head. It's not about moving completely away from truth just so we can assert wisdom, but it's about integrating the two. And integration, I think, is really what allows us to move into more of this unity kind of consciousness that will lead to our ascension. Because unifying with others doesn't mean losing yourself or dissolving into the whole, but I think it means integrating and fitting together and being able to recognize those ways that we fit together and those people that we're meant to impact and touch and those people we're meant to be near to in the community we're meant to find. And I have maybe an odd way of praying that's somewhere between prayer and manifestation that makes sense for where I'm at spiritually, but that's what I pray for, is that we do embrace more of this heart-centered, more of this wisdom, more of this, because we may never know who we can trust as far as these figureheads, but we need to be able to trust ourselves and trust our own discernment and trust our own giftings. And also I think a big piece of it is to move past this obsession with being right into this pursuit of getting it right. And when you're on that kind of mentality of getting it right, then you're not waylaid and you're not set off course when you're wrong here and there, or you trusted the wrong person, or you repeated the wrong information, because that's a learning experience and that moves you toward getting it right. But if you're obsessed with being right, that's a noun, that's a stationary thing, and you want to be stagnated in that, and you then are about protecting your image, and then you have Flint and Dibble arguing with Graham Hancock and all these types of arguments that we get into and debates that we get into, that neither side is moving their position at all. And maybe there is some benefit, but I think there's a higher benefit in being able to embrace this next level that can lead to our ascension, that can lead to our integration with others, lead to our unity with others, that can push back against all these attacks and all these things we have coming against us and the targeting and all of that, and move past the fear, because that fear, that definitely does tamper us down. It makes us second guess whether or not to post that video, makes us second guess, do I want to run this conference another time? Who do I invite? What did I do wrong? Then they can kind of get us so into our head. Whereas when we're operating in that integrated heart and head, then there's less thinking, there's more flow, there's less like getting stuck, and there's more being able to follow what our life plan is, our life contract is, and connect to people in a way that it's just more pure. It's less bogged down by the other stuff.
That was beautifully said, Jerry. Really beautifully said. And the negative agenda has that's what it works with. It works with dividing and conquering. Whether it's so I'm in Ireland, and I have an English accent, but I do consider myself Irish with my roots. But I've seen it do that with even the English and the Irish, and the young and the old, and especially with the English and the Irish. They turned brother against brother. They made agents of siblings, where the siblings had been compromised and infiltrated, and they were literally working the families against each other, like mothers and sons and brother against brother within the same family. But then there's also the bigger picture of young and old, and just so many areas where they've done that. So I know that we could go for at least another hour, but it is 9 o'clock, and so I think we should wrap it up. Thank you so much. Really, thank you so much for all being here this evening. Because otherwise I would just be, I wouldn't have done it. If you guys hadn't showed up, I wouldn't have done it. So thank you so much. Please,
Thank you, everybody.
Please send me all your bios.
Do that.
And I will put them in the description box. So, and I look forward to, I really hope that everyone here and more people can make it next Sunday, 7 p.m. Sunday Irish time.